I never thought I would see someone steal from dying children while pretending to serve God, but that is exactly what walked into my courtroom. His name was Pastor Michael Henderson, 52 years old. He stood at the pulpit every Sunday in a $1,000 suit, telling his congregation about faith and charity and helping those in need. He had a warm smile, a gentle voice, the kind of presence that made people trust him immediately. For 15 years, he led the Grace Community Church in our city. 500 families called that church home. They believed in him. They followed him. They gave him their money because he promised it would help people. Pastor Henderson started a charity called Hope for Tomorrow. It was supposed to help sick children, children with cancer, children who needed expensive treatments their families could not afford. The charity held fundraisers, bake sales, car washes, dinner auctions. People in the community donated, not rich people, working people, teachers, nurses, mechanics, people who did not have much but wanted to help children who had even less. Over 5 years, Hope for Tomorrow raised $870,000. That is not a small amount. That is $870,000 from people who believed they were saving children's lives. People who skipped buying new clothes so they could donate $50. People who worked overtime and gave their extra paycheck. People who believed in something bigger than themselves. But the children never got that money, or most of it anyway, because Pastor Michael Henderson was stealing it month after month, year after year. He took money meant for dying children and he bought himself things, a new car, a boat, a vacation home, designer watches. He lived like a wealthy man while telling his congregation he lived modestly, while telling donors their money was going directly to sick kids. The woman who discovered the theft was named Linda Martinez. She was the church bookkeeper, 63 years old. She had worked at Grace Community Church for 20 years. She did not make much money, maybe $30,000 a year, but she loved that church. She loved Pastor Henderson. She trusted him completely. If you have ever trusted someone who betrayed that trust, if you have ever given your heart to a cause only to discover it was a lie, then please subscribe to this channel. We are a family here fighting for truth and justice. We share these stories because people need to know that even when trust is broken, accountability is possible. Join us now. Linda noticed something strange in March. The charity's bank statements did not match the donation records. There was money going out that she could not account for. At first, she thought it was a mistake. Maybe she had entered something wrong. She was getting older. Maybe her eyes were not as good as they used to be. She checked again and again. The numbers did not add up. She brought it to Pastor Henderson. She said, "Pastor, I think there might be an error in the Hope for Tomorrow accounts. I am seeing withdrawals that do not match any approved expenses." Pastor Henderson smiled at her, that warm, trustworthy smile. He said, "Linda, you work too hard. I probably just forgot to tell you about some payments I authorized. Let me look into it and get back to you." But he never got back to her. Instead, he told her the church was restructuring the charity finances. He said he was bringing in an outside accountant to handle it. He thanked Linda for her years of service, but said they would not need her to manage those books anymore. Linda felt hurt, confused, but she trusted Pastor Henderson, so she let it go. Except she could not let it go. Something felt wrong. She had been doing church finances for 20 years. She knew how things worked, so Linda did something brave. She made copies of the financial records before she handed them over. She took them home, and she spent the next 2 months going through every transaction. What she found made her sick. Hundreds of withdrawals, tens of thousands of dollars at a time. Money transferred from the charity account to Pastor Henderson's personal account, then from his personal account to luxury purchases. The boat was $45,000. The vacation home down payment was $70,000. The car was $68,000. Designer clothes, jewelry, fine dining, all paid for with money meant for sick children. Your support helps us share more stories like this. Stories about ordinary people who find extraordinary courage to expose the truth. Please subscribe. Every subscription tells us you care about protecting the vulnerable from those who exploit them. Linda cried when she realized what she had found. This was her pastor, the man she had trusted for 2 decades, the man who had baptized her grandchildren, the man who had spoken at her husband's funeral 5 years ago and told her that God had a plan. That man was a thief. That man was stealing from dying children. Linda did not know what to do. She was afraid. Afraid people would not believe her. Afraid Pastor Henderson would turn the congregation against her. Afraid she might be wrong somehow, even though the evidence was right there in black and white. She prayed about it. She lost sleep over it. But finally, she knew what she had to do. She went to the police. She walked into the station with 2 boxes of financial records. She told them everything. The detective who took her statement was a woman named Sarah Chen. Detective Chen looked through the records. She said, "Mrs. Martinez, this is serious. If what you are showing me is accurate, this is embezzlement. This is fraud. This could be criminal charges." Linda said, "I know. That is why I came. Those donations were supposed to help children. Families trusted us. They trusted him, and he stole from them. He stole from sick kids." The police investigated. They got warrants. They searched Pastor Henderson's home. They searched the church offices. They seized bank records. They interviewed donors. They interviewed families who had applied for help from Hope for Tomorrow, only to be told there was not enough money. Families whose children had died while waiting for treatment they could not afford. Families who had been turned away while Pastor Henderson was buying a boat. The evidence was overwhelming. Pastor Henderson was arrested on a Tuesday morning. The news spread through the community like wildfire. People could not believe it. Some refused to believe it. They said Linda must be lying. They said she was trying to destroy a good man. They said the police were persecuting a Christian leader. If you believe that faith should be about helping people, not exploiting them, if you think that those who prey on trust deserve justice, then join our community. Subscribe now. We need people who still believe in holding everyone accountable, even those who claim to speak for God. But other people believed Linda. Other people had seen small signs, strange things, the way Pastor Henderson always had expensive things but claimed they were gifts, the way the charity always seemed to have money problems even though donations kept coming in, the way families in desperate need were told there was no funding available. The signs had been there, but people wanted to believe in something good, so they ignored them. The case came to my courtroom 6 months later. Pastor Henderson sat at the defendant's table wearing a modest suit, not the expensive ones he wore on Sundays, a cheaper one, trying to look humble, trying to look like a man of God who was being wrongly accused. His lawyer was good, not as expensive as some I have seen, but competent. The lawyer's strategy was clear: paint Linda as a disgruntled employee, suggest the money went to legitimate expenses that were just poorly documented, make Pastor Henderson seem like a victim of misunderstanding. The prosecutor was David Kim, young guy, maybe 35, but passionate. He believed in this case. He had met some of the families who had been denied help. He had seen what happened when people trusted the wrong person. David presented the evidence methodically, bank statements showing transfers from the charity to Pastor Henderson's personal accounts, credit card statements showing luxury purchases, receipts for the boat, the car, the vacation home, testimony from the bank manager who processed the transfers, testimony from the real estate agent who sold Pastor Henderson the vacation home, testimony from the boat dealer, all of it showing that Pastor Henderson had taken money meant for sick children and spent it on himself. Then David called Linda Martinez to testify. She walked to the witness stand slowly. She was nervous. Her hands shook. She had been receiving hate mail from church members who still supported Pastor Henderson. She had been called a liar and worse. But she was there. She was going to tell the truth. Help an old judge's mission to remind the world that courage means standing up for what is right, even when it costs you everything. Subscribe to this channel. Your voice matters in this fight for justice. David asked Linda to explain how she discovered the theft. She spoke quietly at first, then stronger. She explained the bank statements, the missing documentation, the transfers, the luxury purchases. She had charts. She had highlighted documents. She had done more work than some professional forensic accountants I have seen. This 63-year-old church bookkeeper had built an airtight case against the man she once trusted. Pastor Henderson's lawyer tried to shake her testimony. He asked, "Mrs. Martinez, is it true you were upset when Pastor Henderson removed you from managing the charity finances?" Linda said, "I was confused, yes, but that is not why I went to the police. I went because I found evidence of theft." The lawyer said, You were angry at being replaced, correct? Linda said, "No, sir. I was concerned about what I had found. My feelings about being replaced were not important. The missing money was important." The lawyer tried another angle. "Mrs. Martinez, you are not a certified accountant, correct?" Linda said, "No, sir, but I have been doing church bookkeeping for 20 years. I know how to read a bank statement. I know that when $800,000 comes in and only $50,000 reaches the people it is supposed to help, something is very wrong." The lawyer said, "Perhaps Pastor Henderson used the money for other charitable purposes you were not aware of." Linda looked at him. She said, "Then why did he lie about it? Why did he tell donors their money was going directly to sick children? Why did he hide the purchases? Why did he remove me from the books when I started asking questions?" The courtroom was quiet. The lawyer had no good answer. He moved on. Then Pastor Henderson took the stand. He was calm, composed. He spoke in that gentle voice that had convinced so many people to trust him. He said the charges were based on misunderstandings, that yes, he had used some charity funds, but only for legitimate expenses, that the boat was for church youth group activities, that the car was necessary for his ministry work, that the vacation home was going to be used for church retreats. We need voices like yours to stand against those who abuse trust, who use faith as a cover for greed. Subscribe and show that we will not let the powerful escape justice just because they wear the right costume. Join us now. David Kim cross-examined him. David asked, "Pastor Henderson, did you tell donors that their money would go directly to helping sick children?" Pastor Henderson said, in general terms, yes. That was the goal of the charity. David said, "Did you tell them you would spend their donations on a boat for yourself?" Pastor Henderson said the boat was for youth group activities. David said, "How many youth group activities were held on that boat?" Pastor Henderson hesitated. He said, we were planning them." David said, "The boat was purchased 3 years ago. How many youth group activities have been held on it in 3 years?" Pastor Henderson said, I do not have the exact number." David said, "I will help you. The answer is 0. Not one single church youth group activity has been held on that boat. You have used it for personal fishing trips and weekend getaways. Is that correct?" Pastor Henderson's calm started to crack. He said, "Iska, the boat was available for church use." David said, "But it was not used for church. It was used by you, for you, with money that people donated thinking it would help dying children. Is that correct?" Pastor Henderson said, "That is an oversimplification." David said, "Let me make it simple then. Did money donated to help sick children end up paying for your boat, your car, your vacation home, and your personal luxuries?" Pastor Henderson said quietly, "Some funds were redirected, yes." David said, "Redirected. That is a nice way of saying stolen, is it not?" Pastor Henderson's lawyer objected. I sustained the objection on form, but the damage was done. Everyone in that courtroom had heard it. Thank you for being here, for listening to this story, for caring about the families who were betrayed. Please subscribe and stay with us. We are building something important together. David presented more evidence, testimonies from families who had applied to Hope for Tomorrow for help. A mother whose daughter had leukemia. She had applied for help with treatment costs. She was told the charity had no available funds. This was during the same month Pastor Henderson bought his boat. The mother broke down crying on the stand. She said, "We had to sell our house to pay for treatment. We lost everything. And the whole time he was buying toys for himself with money that could have saved us." Another family, a father whose son needed a bone marrow transplant. He had applied for help, was told there were no funds. His son died 6 months later. The father could barely speak on the stand. He said, I begged for help. They said there was nothing available. My son died. And this man was living in luxury on money that was supposed to save children like my son. I sat on that bench listening to these testimonies, and I felt something I rarely feel. I felt rage, pure righteous rage at the injustice of it. These were good people, people who had already suffered the worst thing a parent can suffer, and they had been lied to. They had been told there was no help while the man who was supposed to help them was stealing their last hope to buy himself luxuries. I thought about my own grandson. He is 7, healthy, happy. But I imagined what I would do if he got sick. if he needed treatment, if someone told me there was a charity that could help, if I donated everything I had, if other people donated, if we all believed we were saving a child's life. And then I found out the person running that charity had stolen the money to buy a boat. I do not know what I would do, but I know it would not be peaceful. The law is supposed to channel that rage into justice. That is what I told myself as I listened to more testimonies, more families, more pain, more betrayal. The prosecution presented evidence that at least 50 families had been denied help while Pastor Henderson was stealing. 50 families with sick children who were told there were no funds available. Be part of something meaningful. Subscribe to this channel and join thousands who believe that justice means protecting those who trusted, not those who betrayed that trust. We need you with us. Finally, it was time for closing arguments. Pastor Henderson's lawyer tried his best. He talked about how Pastor Henderson had done good work for 15 years, how he had helped many people, how this was a case of poor financial management, not criminal intent, how Pastor Henderson had made mistakes but did not deserve to go to prison. David Kim stood up for the prosecution. He did not yell. He did not need to. He spoke quietly. He said, "Your Honor, this case is about trust, about what happens when someone in a position of authority betrays that trust in the worst possible way. Pastor Henderson did not just steal money. He stole hope. He stole it from families at their most desperate moment. He stole it from children who were fighting for their lives, and he spent it on boats and cars and vacation homes while those children suffered and died." David continued, "The defense wants you to believe this was poor management. But poor management does not explain lying to donors. It does not explain hiding purchases. It does not explain removing the bookkeeper who discovered the theft. It does not explain denying help to dying children while living in luxury. That is not poor management. That is calculated, deliberate theft. That is evil." The courtroom was silent. I looked at Pastor Henderson. He stared at the table. No more calm composure, no more gentle smile. He looked like what he was, a man who knew he had been caught, a man who knew his lies were over. I called a recess. I went to my chambers. I needed to think. The law was clear. The evidence was overwhelming. Pastor Henderson was guilty. The question was sentencing. His lawyer would ask for leniency, would argue that prison time was excessive, would say that restitution and probation were sufficient. Together we can inspire change, one story at a time, one verdict at a time. Subscribe and help us build a community that demands accountability from everyone, especially those who claim moral authority. Your subscription creates real impact. But I thought about those families, about the mother who sold her house, about the father whose son died, about the 50 families who were denied help, about Linda Martinez who risked everything to expose the truth, about all the donors who gave from their hearts believing they were helping children. When I returned to the courtroom, I asked Pastor Henderson to stand. He stood slowly. His lawyer stood beside him. I said, "Mr. Henderson, I am not going to call you pastor. You do not deserve that title. You took a position of spiritual authority and you used it to steal from the most vulnerable people in our community. You stole from dying children. You stole from their desperate families. You stole from hardworking people who gave their last dollars because they believed in helping others." I continued, "The evidence in this case is overwhelming. You transferred $820,000 from charity accounts to your personal accounts. You spent that money on luxury items for yourself. You lied to donors. You lied to your congregation. You denied help to families with sick children while you lived in comfort. This was not poor management. This was systematic, calculated theft." Pastor Henderson's lawyer started to speak. I held up my hand. "I am not finished. What makes this case particularly egregious is the trust that was placed in you. You were a spiritual leader. People believed in you. They looked up to you. Parents of dying children came to you seeking help, and you turned them away while their donations were in your pocket. That is not just theft. That is cruelty." I said, "I find you guilty on all charges, 23 counts of embezzlement, 15 counts of wire fraud, multiple counts of making false statements. Now for sentencing, your lawyer will ask me to consider your years of service, your contributions to the community, your lack of prior criminal record. But I'm going to consider something else. I'm going to consider the families you hurt, the children who did not get help, the trust you destroyed. If you think people who exploit faith for personal gain deserve full accountability, please subscribe. Help us spread this message. We need your voice to reach more people who care about justice. I continued, I am sentencing you to 15 years in federal prison. You will serve at least 12 years before being eligible for parole. Additionally, I am ordering you to pay full restitution of $820,000 to be distributed to the families who were denied help and to legitimate children's charities. You will forfeit the boat, the car, the vacation home, and all other assets purchased with stolen funds. Those assets will be sold, and the proceeds will go toward restitution. Pastor Henderson's face went white. His lawyer was objecting. I banged my gavel. Furthermore, you are banned from serving in any leadership position in any charitable organization for the rest of your life. You are banned from handling other people's money in any capacity, and you will issue a public apology to every donor, every family you turned away, and Linda Martinez, who had the courage to expose your crimes. The courtroom erupted. Some people were cheering, some were crying. Pastor Henderson slumped in his chair. His lawyer was still objecting, talking about appeals. But I was done. I said, "This court is adjourned." After the courtroom cleared, Linda Martinez came up to the bench. She was crying. She said, "Thank you, Judge. I thought no one would believe me. I thought I would lose everything for speaking up." I said, "You did lose things, Linda. You lost friends who should have believed you. You lost a church community that should have supported you. But you gained something more important. You gained the knowledge that you did the right thing, that you stood up for truth when it cost you everything." She said, "Was it worth it?" I said, "Ask those families who will now get help with the restitution money. Ask the future children who will be protected, because this man can never do this again." Yes, Linda, it was worth it. Subscribe if you believe in people like Linda who risk everything to expose the truth. Your subscription supports stories that remind us all that ordinary people can stand against powerful corruption. Join us. Pastor Henderson did appeal. He lost. He is in federal prison now. He has served 3 years of his sentence. The boat, the car, the vacation home were all sold. The money was distributed to families. Some of the families whose children had died used it to start legitimate charities in their children's names. Real charities, with real oversight, helping real kids. Linda Martinez found a new church, a smaller one, but a good one. She still does the bookkeeping. She is more careful now, more watchful. She knows that trust is precious and fragile and must be protected. The Grace Community Church struggled after the scandal. Many people left, but some stayed. They elected new leadership. They implemented strict financial oversight. They partnered with established charities instead of running their own. They are rebuilding. Slowly, the trust is damaged, but not destroyed. I think about this case often. It reminds me that the worst betrayals come from those we trust most, that people will use anything, even faith, to exploit others. But it also reminds me that there are people like Linda Martinez, people who will risk everything to do what is right, people who will stand up when it would be easier to stay silent. That is what justice depends on, not just judges or lawyers or police, but ordinary people who refuse to look away, who refuse to accept injustice even when exposing it costs them dearly. Linda lost friends, lost her church community, but she saved future children from the same fate. She stopped a predator. She protected the vulnerable. Thank you for watching this story. Thank you for caring about the families who were hurt and about people like Linda who fought for them. Subscribe to this channel and join our family that believes in truth and accountability and protecting those who cannot protect themselves. To anyone watching who sees wrongdoing and wonders if they should speak up, I want you to know something. It will be hard. People might not believe you. You might lose things you value. But staying silent means letting the wrong continue, means letting more people get hurt. Find your courage, document the evidence, go to the authorities, tell the truth. People like Linda prove that one person with courage and evidence can bring down even those who seem untouchable. And to anyone in a position of trust, whether in a church or charity or any organization handling other people's money or faith, remember this: that trust is sacred. People give you their resources believing you will use them honorably. Betraying that trust is not just illegal. It is a moral crime that destroys something precious. Do not be Michael Henderson. Be worthy of the trust placed in you. This is what justice looks like when it works, when evidence is gathered carefully, when brave people come forward, when the system holds everyone accountable regardless of their title or position. Pastor Henderson thought his collar would protect him. It did not. Linda Martinez thought no one would listen to a church bookkeeper. She was wrong. Truth has power. Courage has power. Justice has power. Subscribe and be part of the community that believes these things matter, that believes in protecting the vulnerable from those who exploit them, that believes anyone can be held accountable if someone is brave enough to demand it. One story at a time, we are showing that ordinary people can make extraordinary differences, that faith should be about helping, not hurting, that trust is sacred and those who betray it will face consequences. Subscribe today and join us in this fight for a world where children get the help they need, where donors' generosity is honored, where courage is rewarded, and where justice protects those who need it most. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. Now subscribe and help us share this message with everyone who needs to hear it.